a peaceful town nestled at the base of some mountains. Well, it was peaceful until someone started screaming. In the village square, Sigmul is roughing up an old man, while everyone else just stands around and watches. He's demanding to know if there's a female elf in town, claiming his captain wants to have a little chat with her. The old man tries to say he doesn't know anything, but the thug just tosses him onto the pavement like trash. The villagers are terrified. Apparently, this guy is part of a gang of orphans that's been causing all sorts of trouble lately. One of the locals notes that since the world is going to hell, it's no surprise that thugs like this are popping up everywhere. There are even rumors that the Demon King's army has been wiping out noble territories nearby. Back at the confrontation, Sigmul is getting pissed off that the crowd is staring at him like he's some kind of show. Nobody wants to step in, though. They're all just hoping the guards show up before things get worse. Sigmul's done waiting. Since the old man isn't talking, he decides a punch to the face might loosen his tongue. The old man braces for the hit, thinking this is the end. But out of nowhere, a hand reaches out and catches the punch midair. Eldmia steps onto the scene, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else but here. The blue-haired kid tells the old man he's got this and turns his attention to the thug. Sigmul is losing his mind. He can't believe some random brat actually blocked his strike. Eldmia mentions he overheard them looking for an elf and asks who the hell they think they are. Instead of being scared, Sigmul just gets a creepy look in his eyes. He figures if the kid is sticking up for the old man, he must know where the elf is hidden. Eldmia doesn't even blink. He tells the thug to take him to his leader if he wants to stay in one piece. That's the final straw for Sigmul. He screams at the kid not to look down on him and swings with everything he's got. The next second, the thug is flat on his back, staring up at the clouds. He's dazed, wondering what the hell just happened. All he saw was a flash of light. Eldmia shakes his hand out, admitting the guy has some decent guts for a bottom-tier thug. He looms over him with a cold stare, asking how much more punishment he can take. Cut to a rundown barn on the outskirts of town. Inside, someone is losing their patience over the missing elf. The thug leader is fuming because his men are taking forever to find one girl. He's regretting not just doing the job himself, instead of relying on his useless lackeys. Suddenly, the doors are kicked wide open. Eldmia walks in, dragging the half-conscious Sigmul by the collar. The leader is stunned by the sudden entrance. He looks at the rest of his gang, who are all wondering who this blue-haired kid is. Eldmia drops the thug and sarcastically asks if he's in the wrong place, since the welcome is so cold. Sigmul stammers out that this is definitely the right spot. Eldmia grabs him by the hair, reminding him that a good navigator is supposed to lead you to the destination. The terrified thug points right at the leader, begging Eldmia to believe him. One of the other guys pulls out a knife, laughing at Sigmul for getting wrecked by a child. Eldmia ignores the small fry and keeps his eyes locked on the guy in the chair. The thug leader leans forward with a smirk, asking if he's the brat who lives with the elf. Eldmia cuts the small talk and demands to know why they're looking for his sister. The leader gives him a disgusting grin, explaining they plan to have some fun with her before selling her off for a profit. Eldmia's expression goes cold. He realizes that trying to talk sense into these guys is just a waste of time. He starts to pull the barn door shut, locking himself in with the trash. Inside the barn, the thugs are laughing their heads off. They think they've got the kid cornered. Eldmia isn't trapped with them, though. They're trapped with him. He calmly slides the door shut. With his hand resting on his blade, Eldmia tells the group he's got two very important things to say. One of the thugs points a finger, mocking him. He's convinced the kid is just playing hero with a toy sword. The thug tells him the weapon is wasted on a brat and demands he hand over the elf quietly. Suddenly, the thug's voice catches in his throat. He looks like he's just seen a ghost. With his other hand, Eldmia bends the sword while bolting the door shut. He introduces himself. First, my name is Eldmia. The rest of the gang starts sweating bullets. They realize this kid just bent thick metal like it was made of paper. The thug leader grits his teeth. He can feel the situation sliding out of his control. He screams at his men to stop flinching, claiming the sword must be fake and ordering them to attack. The thugs charge from all sides, brandishing knives and axes. Eldmia doesn't even move. He just watches them come with a bored expression. He thinks to himself that he expected a real challenge, but this is just a sad gathering of small-time crooks. He looks at the younger ones in the group, disappointed that their level is even lower than he thought. Blue energy begins to pulse around his feet as he prepares to end this. In a flash of blue light, he disappears from his spot and lunges straight into the fray. The leader barely has time to register what's happening. Eldmia's goal is simple: take out the head of the snake first. He delivers a devastating punch right to the leader's gut, the impact creating a massive shockwave. The man is sent flying across the room, his eyes rolling back in his head. The sheer force of the blow kicks up a massive cloud of dust and debris. The remaining thugs are frozen in place, staring at the destruction in pure disbelief. One of the girls in the gang watches in horror as their captain is wiped out in a single heartbeat. Eldmia stands over the unconscious leader, his fist still smoking. Second, remember this one thing. He crosses his arms, looking completely unbothered by the fight. With a predatory grin, he tells them never to make him angry again. They seem to get the message. Cut to a peaceful cabin in the mountains at sunset. A voice sighs, "Good grief." Inside, a beautiful elf woman named Acelia Endorinia is waiting. She's already scolding Eldmia for getting into another fight. She stands in the kitchen, asking if the thugs weren't even worth his time. She looks him in the eye, calling him Eldy, with a worried but firm expression. Eldmia just laughs it off, while she keeps lecturing him about staying out of trouble. He sighs, explaining that those guys were talking trash about her. As her brother, he wasn't about to just stand by. Acelia can't help but sigh too. He's only 11, but he talks like he's seen it all. She starts serving dinner, though she still wishes he'd try something other than violence once in a while. She asks what took him so long, since she expected him to finish the job in an instant. Flashback to the barn. Eldmia is sitting on a crate, looking down at the thugs who are now bowing before him. He realizes they aren't war orphans at all, just a bunch of runaways causing trouble. They beg for mercy, promising to go home. He leans against the doorframe and tells them to get lost. They don't need to be told twice. Then he turns to another group of kids who are still lingering in the barn. They look absolutely miserable. They tell him they don't have a home to go back to. Eldmia stops and takes a closer look. He realizes these ones are the real deal. He scratches the back of his head, letting out a frustrated sigh. This is a problem he can't just punch away. Acelia listens patiently as Eldmia explains that he got held up looking for a safe place for the orphans to stay. Eldmia stares into his soup, admitting that seeing children without a home or family felt far too personal. He tells her that since he was given a chance at a new life, he wanted to pay it forward to those kids. He rubs the back of his head with a sheepish grin, finding it a bit embarrassing to admit his feelings out loud. Acelia is overcome with pride and tackles her little brother in a massive, affectionate hug. Later, they both lie on the floor of their home, reflecting on the 3 years that have passed since they first met. Acelia looks up at the ceiling with a peaceful smile, remarking that their life now feels almost like a dream. Eldmia stares upward with a more serious expression, wondering what would have become of them if they hadn't met that day. He slowly closes his eyes, letting his mind drift back to the memories of their first encounter. The memory begins with a village consumed by flames under a blood-red sunset. A much younger Eldmia, his face streaked with tears and sweat, grips a sword that is far too heavy for him. Nearby, Acelia is shackled and bound, her expression one of utter despair. The heavy iron blade clatters into the dirt as the young boy's strength finally fails him. He collapses to his knees, a pained groan escaping his lips as he faces the destruction of his home. Acelia can only watch in silence, her own hands bound by cold iron. 3 years ago, that day, I lost everything. The weight of the tragedy settles over the memory. Acelia's bare feet stumble over the wreckage of the burning village as she tries to find a way to escape. She gasps for breath, her eyes darting around in panic as she hears the shouts of her pursuers. A group of heavily armed thugs swarms the area, their faces twisted with greed and cruelty. One of the men kicks open a door, his curved blade held ready as he searches for the fleeing elf. The thug leader, a muscular man with a thick reddish-brown beard and shaggy hair, bellows orders to his men. In the shadows, young Eldmia stands paralyzed by grief, his head hanging low. He holds a silver locket open, staring at the portrait of a woman who is clearly precious to him. With a surge of hopeless rage, he tears the necklace from his neck, the chain snapping under his grip. The thug leader towers over him, cruelly telling the boy that if he's going to die anyway, he should at least be useful. The leader is incensed, shouting that the elf can't have gone far with the restraint collar preventing her from using magic. Isilia huddles against a stone wall, her heart hammering in her chest as the collar begins to glow with a faint blue light. She knows she needs to find a place to hide before they spot her in the open. She bursts through the doorway of a nearby house, her shackled hands raised in a desperate effort to move faster. Leaning against the wall, she tries to catch her breath, hopping against hope that she has bought herself a few moments of safety. Her eyes widen in shock as she hears a small gasp from within the darkened room. She finds herself staring at young Eldmia, who is standing in the middle of the room, looking utterly terrified. The boy's face is pale with fear as he looks at the shackled woman who has just invaded his hiding spot. Outside, the thug leader holds up a glowing blue orb, his face twisted in a snarl of frustration. He activates the magical device, and Isilia's breath is stolen away as the restraint collar begins to hum. She lets out a harrowing scream as a powerful magical shock surges through her body, bringing her to her knees. One of the thugs points triumphantly toward the house, shouting that he's found their target. Isilia collapses to the floor, gasping for air as her strength leaves her. The thug leader leads his men toward the house, ordering them to gather up the merchandise and anything else of value. As she hears them approaching, Isilia's only thought is for the safety of the small child she found. She had quickly shoved young Eldmia into a wooden cupboard, hiding him just seconds before the thugs burst in. The thugs stop at the entrance of the house, their attention caught by a faint sound from within. The thugs enter the house, surprised to find a young boy hiding in the same room as the elf they were hunting. Young Eldmia stares up at them, trembling with fear as cold sweat pours down his face. Isilia, still in the hands of her captors, is horrified to see the boy has been discovered. The thug leader decides that a survivor of the village raid is a valuable prize and orders his men to take the boy as well. The leader draws his sword and looms over Eldmia, mockingly telling the child that his luck has finally run out. With tears streaming down his face, the boy insists that he cannot leave because his parents are still in the village. The thugs burst into cruel laughter, mocking the child for his naive hope in the middle of a massacre. The thug Longhaird's expression turns sinister as he decides to crush the boy's remaining spirit. He points out the devastation outside, explaining that the Demon King's army has already wiped out the entire village. Eldmia is paralyzed by shock as the horrific reality of his situation begins to sink in. The long-haired coldly informs him that his parents are gone, and that from now on, the thugs are his masters. Just as the long-haired moves to seize the boy, a sudden flash of blue light erupts from the ground. The light envelops Eldmia, who stares down at the sudden phenomenon with wide, confused eyes. In an instant, blood sprays across the room as one of the thugs collapses, struck by an invisible force. The remaining thugs scramble back in a panic, shouting for their comrades to grab their weapons. Eldmia looks up, his gaze now unnervingly sharp as a mysterious energy radiates from him. A large sword tip is embedded in the ground, vibrating with a strange and ominous power. The boy grips the hilt of the sword, his teeth bared in fear as he feels the weapon moving of its own accord. The thugs hesitate, their bravado vanishing as they see the incredible power emanating from the child. They begin to realize the sword might be a legendary demon sword left behind by the army that destroyed the village. The thug leader's greed quickly outweighs his fear as he considers the fortune a demon sword would bring. He forces his subordinates forward, threatening them with death if they fail to seize the weapon from the boy. Terrified of their leader, the men prepare for a desperate assault, their faces pale with dread. With a chorus of frightened cries, the thugs charge at Eldmia, their weapons raised to kill. Acelia and Erinia screamed, telling the boy to run while she struggled against her shackles. The bandit laughed, swinging his axe with a greedy look in his eyes. He was convinced that once he seized the legendary demon sword, it would be game over. He freezes, his confident smirk disappearing as something fast streaks past. A young Eldmia tears through the air, his blade glowing with a fierce light. The boy is a blur of motion, carving through the bandits before they can even process what's happening. His eyes are cold, focused only on the kill as the demon sword hums in his hand. The leader starts to sweat, wondering what kind of monster he's actually dealing with. Eldmia doesn't give them a chance to breathe, dropping another bandit in a spray of blood. Acelia watches in disbelief, her eyes wide as she realizes that sword isn't what it seems. Eldmia stops, standing among the rubble as the leader yells at him to stay put. The bandit leader grabs Acelia, pressing a sword to her throat and threatening to take her head off if Eldmia moves. Acelia tries to warn the leader, but he tells her to shut up. He thinks he's got the upper hand, justifying his cruelty by calling her merchandise. Behind his grin, he's already planning to kill the kid the moment that sword is in his hands. Eldmia just looks down, his face hidden in shadow as he listens to the man's demands. He slowly reaches out, his hand open as if he's about to surrender his weapon. He tosses the sword into the air, catching the bandit completely off guard. He shoves Acelia aside, his focus entirely on the weapon as it flies through the air. He lunges forward, his feet barely touching the ground in his rush. He dives for the blade, greed written all over his face. But the sword did nothing, and Eldmia struck him down with the bandit's own blade, which he had picked up from the ground. The boy sits among the bodies of the bandits he just slaughtered, the demon sword lying useless on the ground. He takes a long, shaky breath. Eldmia screams at the sky, cursing the army and the bandits who ruined his home. Acelia just stares, terrified and confused by the boy who just saved her life. He looks at her and admits the whole thing was a lie. There was never any demon sword. He had simply used his pure skill to make them believe the weapon was enchanted. He used their own greed and fear to distract them long enough to secure the win. Eldmia pulls a real sword from one of the dead bandits, showing just how far his judgment goes. He looks small sitting there in the ruins, but his eyes say he's seen too much for an 8-year-old. Acelia walks closer, asking why a child like him would even bother saving her. He looks away, bluntly telling her that saving her wasn't his intention. This was his home, and he simply couldn't stand by and watch bandits tear it apart. Then he shifts the focus, correctly guessing that she's a mage. He watches the smoke rise from the village, his expression hardening. Acelia looks down, confirming his suspicion. A small, chilling smile crosses his face as he mutters that maybe gods really do exist. He pulls out a glowing blue orb and holds it out toward her. Her eyes go wide as she recognizes the monosuppression key. Eldmia makes her an offer, her freedom in exchange for her protection for the next 8 years. He asks her straight up if she'll stay with him until he's grown. Surrounded by the corpses of his neighbors, he realizes he has no one else left to rely on. Even after losing everything, young Eldmia knew he couldn't stay in the destroyed village with winter fast approaching. He held on to his hope, whispering to himself that no matter what happened, he wanted to live. Back in the present, a villager snaps Eldmia out of his thoughts by shouting his name. The man surprises him with a friendly grab, asking why he's spacing out. He mentions he heard all about the fight Eldmia had with the orphan gang earlier. He saw the whole thing and was impressed by how Eldmia took them down with a single hit. Eldmia doesn't really see it as a compliment, but the man is just glad the village is finally peaceful. He holds out a bright red apple, catching Eldmia off guard. He offers it as a thank you gift for cleaning up the streets. A shopkeeper yells in the background about giving away stock without permission, but the villager just shrugs it off. Eldmia can't help but let a small smile slip as he looks at the fruit. The moment is cut short when someone screams out his name in pure desperation. A young villager comes running up, looking like he's seen a ghost. He is one of the orphans, and he demands that Eldmia follow him immediately. Eldmia immediately realizes something is wrong and asks if something happened. He gasped out that some suspicious-looking people had just tried to kidnap the kids. At the mention of a kidnapping, Eldmia's expression turns deadly. Memories of his home burning and the screams of his people start to flood back. He remembers that day 3 years ago like it was yesterday, and the pain is still just as sharp. He recalls the silhouette of a man and the feeling of being completely helpless as everything was taken. Ogwyn had become his second chance at a home after he lost everything. More importantly, it's where Asilia and Erinia, the person most precious to him, now lives. He clenches his fist so hard his knuckles turn white, promising himself he won't let history repeat itself. His voice drops to a cold, dangerous tone as he asks exactly where these people are. Deep in an alley, the silver-haired hooded agent is already losing his patience with the brat who interrupted them. Eldmia walks right up to them, noting that they've got quite the nerve coming to this village for a kidnapping. He stares the man down, his aura making it clear he's not just some random kid. He's already made short work of the agent's thugs, who are now lying unconscious in the dirt. The hooded agent sighs, disappointed that he had to rely on such useless lowlifes. Eldmia makes it clear that since he's the one who looked after Rivi, any attack on her is an attack on him. He extends a hand, inviting the man to try and defeat him if he really wants the girl. The agent doesn't hesitate, drawing his blade with a snarl. He lunges forward, but Eldmia is already moving, blocking the strike with ease. The man's eyes widen in shock as he realizes his attack was completely neutralized by a child. Before he can recover, Eldmia winds up a punch and strikes. But it's a feint. He throws a handful of sand directly into the agent's face. Blinded, the agent staggers back, clutching his face in agony. He curses, unable to see his opponent through the grit and dust. Eldmia doesn't give him a second to recover, delivering a crushing kick to his stomach. The force sends the hooded agent skidding across the ground like a ragdoll. Eldmia looks down at him, unimpressed, nodding that for someone who's not an ordinary kidnapper, he's pretty pathetic. The agent glares up through his silver hair, his face twisted in a mask of pure rage. His eyes wide with murderous intent, he makes it clear that he's not planning on letting this kid walk away alive. Just as he's about to strike back, the sound of an approaching crowd catches his attention. Villagers and the innkeeper, Alicia, come running toward the noise to investigate the commotion. Realizing he's outnumbered, the silver-haired leader pulls out a smoke bomb to cover his retreat. A thick cloud of gray smoke erupts, filling the street and causing everyone to scramble in confusion. Eldmia coughs through the haze as the villagers rush to check if he's hurt. By the time the air clears, the main target has vanished into thin air, leaving only his lackeys behind. Our protagonist turns his attention to one of the thugs left crawling in the dirt, abandoned by his boss. With a terrifying glow in his eyes, he cracks his knuckles and prepares to get some real answers. The thug immediately cracks, begging for mercy while admitting they were looking for a specific target. A mention of a noble girl completely catches the boy off guard. Apparently, there's a rumor that a lady from a destroyed noble house is hiding out nearby with a massive bounty on her head. Eldmia doesn't care about fairy tales. He wants to know who the silver-haired guy was. After seeing the guy's pathetic state, the blue-haired teen realizes he's probably telling the truth about being a pawn. He doesn't let them off easy, though, tying them up securely to be dealt with by the guards later. Once the mess is handled, Eldmia checks on Rivi to make sure she's okay. The girl seems fine, but the thought of professional kidnappers stalking the village has her on edge. He tells her to head back to the inn and try to get some rest. Rivi lingers for a moment, her expression unreadable as she stares at the ground in silence. Later, our hero walks into the inn and stops dead in his tracks, wondering if he's in the right building. The place is transformed, filled with decorations and more customers than he's ever seen at this hour. The regulars crowd around Rivi, relieved to hear that she's safe after the earlier commotion. A local kid pulls at her sleeve, desperately asking for help because they're suddenly short-handed. The orange-haired girl doesn't skip a beat, efficiently delegating tasks and organizing the staff. Alicia spots the protagonist and greets him with a wide, happy grin. The innkeeper gives him a playful nudge, thanking him for taking out the trash and keeping the village safe. The woman admits she's impressed with how well the new kids are working, bringing a fresh energy to the place. Eldmia tries to give her the credit, but she shakes her head and laughs. Confused, he asks who's actually responsible for the sudden success of the business. Alicia points over to Rivi, explaining how the girl took charge and got everyone motivated. She reveals that the teenager even redid the menu and fixed the accounting books. That detail sticks in the boy's mind. It's strange for a common village girl to know high-level bookkeeping. He asks if she can really read and write, and the older woman confirms it. In fact, her grammar and handwriting are so refined they put most scholars to shame. The pieces start falling into place as Eldmia remembers the thug's story about the missing noble lady. Rivi continues her work, unaware that her secret might have just been blown. Without a word, the boy marches over and grabs her by the shoulder, startling her out of her routine. Eldmia asks Rivi if she has any idea who that robed guy actually was. Rivi is completely flustered, telling him to just let go of her for a second. Without answering, the boy pulls her along, demanding she come with him. The orange-haired girl is caught off guard by his sudden intensity. She struggles to keep up as he drags her toward a private room. A heavy wooden door slams shut behind them, cutting them off from the rest of the inn. Rivi's heart starts racing. She can't tell if it's fear or something else entirely. She notices a strange, cold energy coming from the teen, just like during the fight. Despite her panic, she can't help thinking he actually looked a bit cool back there. She quickly shakes the thought out of her head as Eldmia calls out her name. The girl begs him for a moment to think, admitting she's not mentally prepared for whatever is coming. He looks at her with genuine confusion, explaining he just has one simple question. Eldmia gets right to the point, asking if she's the missing noble lady everyone is talking about. Rivi freezes up as he repeats the rumor he heard from the thugs earlier. He recalls the groveling bandit mentioning a high-reward target from a fallen house. Eldmia explains that this rumor is the only thing that makes sense of why they're after her. The girl tries to play it off as a coincidence, but he isn't buying it for a second. She starts sweating under his sharp gaze, realizing her secret might be out. Our protagonist points out her suspiciously advanced skills in bookkeeping and paperwork. He notes that no ordinary orphan would have that kind of education without a noble upbringing. Rivi looks away, unable to come up with a convincing lie to save herself. The blue-haired boy says he needs the full story if he's going to keep her safe. He warns her that if they don't deal with this now, the kidnappers will just keep coming. She apologizes but insists she still can't talk about it, so he decides not to push her any further. When she asks what he's planning, the look in his eyes changes completely. He plans to track the assassins to their forest hideout and wipe them out once and for all. Rivi is horrified, asking if he really thinks he can take them all on by himself. Eldmia tells her to just stay put at the inn while he handles the heavy lifting. He knows that the guys he beat up earlier were just the tip of the iceberg for this organization. The boy refuses to let scumbags target his friends in broad daylight without a response. Rivi hangs her head and blames herself for dragging him into her mess. He reaches out and gently pats her head, telling her to stop with the self-pity. Eldmia makes it clear that the only ones to blame are the bastards doing the kidnapping. He gives her a reassuring look, telling her not to lose any sleep over it. With a determined grip, he prepares himself for the upcoming fight. He shoots her a confident smirk, promising that he's way stronger than he looks. Under the glow of a full moon, the scene shifts to the dark woods outside the village. The silver-haired leader from earlier is back at camp, nursing his wounded pride by the fire. A burly thug tells him to pipe down, since the mission was technically a success anyway. The agent is absolutely fuming, vowing to rip that brat apart for blinding him with sand. The man tells him to stay put as per Delta's orders, so they don't blow the whole plan. But the silver-haired assassin isn't in the mood for lectures, looking down on the others as beneath him. At the forest camp, the thug leader and his men are alerted by a sudden rustling in the dark. They reach for their weapons when the command to investigate the noise is given. One of the bandits cautiously steps into the brush, wondering what's lurking in the shadows. The man reports back that it's probably just an animal, but his boss isn't convinced. Before he can argue, Eldmia erupts from the foliage like a blue streak of lightning. The boy's sword cuts through the first guard before the man can even register his presence. Another bandit is splattered with his comrade's blood, his face twisting into a mask of pure terror. Blue magic swirls around Eldmia, his eyes glowing with an intensity that feels entirely inhuman. The hooded agent grits his teeth in fury, realizing that the brat actually tracked them down. He screams for his remaining men to kill the intruder, desperate to end the threat immediately. Eldmia doesn't give them a chance to coordinate, moving with speed that defies the laws of nature. He strikes down another thug with a single, precise blow, his face remaining eerily calm. The camp becomes a blur of steel and blood as the young protagonist carves his way through the ranks. Every movement Eldmia makes is calculated and lethal, showing the experience of a much older warrior. He unleashes a glowing arc of energy, putting all his strength into a finishing blow. One more assassin falls to the ground, cursing his luck as the boy continues his rampage. Eldmia stands amidst the chaos, his blade humming with the power of unrefined magic. He moves like a whirlwind, taking down two enemies at once in a display of overwhelming skill. The hooded agent watches in disbelief, sweat pouring down his face as he realizes he's outmatched. Eldmia stops for a moment, mocking the man for running away like a coward earlier that day. The silver-haired assassin draws his own sword, vowing to shut the boy's mouth for good. Their blades clash with a violent shockwave, the sheer pressure of Eldmia's power shaking the ground. The agent's eyes widen in realization as he feels a terrifying sensation coming from the boy. He can hardly believe his senses. This level of raw magic power shouldn't be possible for a human. He knows that mages must painstakingly refine their magic into mana to cast even simple spells. And even the strongest knights have to convert their power into aura just to strengthen their bodies. The hooded agent is paralyzed by the impossibility of the teen standing right in front of him. Eldmia raises his sword, a cold smirk playing on his lips as he prepares his final move. He explains that unlike the people of this world, he can use raw magic power without any refinement. A massive explosion of blue energy blasts the hooded agent back, shattering his defense. The boy is on him in an instant, not giving his enemy a single second to recover or escape. He stands over the broken assassin, admitting the man had guts even if he was hopelessly weak. Dismissing the fallen leader, Eldmia turns his attention to the last man standing in the camp. A bandit wearing goggles cowers against a wooden wagon, trembling so hard he can barely breathe. Eldmia grabs the terrified man by his collar, hauling him up to look him dead in the eye. He demands the name of the mastermind behind the kidnapping, his voice dripping with cold menace. He tells the man to hurry up, nodding that his sister will be furious if he returns home too late. Suddenly, a deafening roar shakes the forest as a massive red wyvern descends upon the camp. The beast's arrival is so sudden that even Eldmia is forced to jump back to avoid its snapping jaws. The wyvern's eyes glow with a predatory light as it lets out a shriek that echoes through the trees. But he simply dispatches the giant beast with a single hilt strike, and the dragon immediately lies unconscious next to the bandit. Eldmia sheathes his sword, still thrilled from having faced a legendary beast for the first time. A thought flashes through his mind. A red wyvern takes to the sky, its wings beating powerfully against the night air as it carries a mysterious rider. Eldmia watches from below, realizing that the people behind this are far more than just common criminals. His eyes narrow with a cold, sharp focus as he begins to connect the pieces of their plan. He notices another carriage abandoned in the clearing, a sign that they had prepared for a much larger transport. Without hesitation, Eldmia presses his blade against the throat of the bandit he just captured. He demands the location of the other wyvern, giving the man a chilling choice: speak or die. The bandit stammers in fear, revealing that their captain, a knight named Delta, has already flown away on it. Eldmia realizes with a surge of frustration that he has been outplayed by his enemies. He sees now that the entire camp was just a trap meant to delay him, while the real target was taken. Miles away, Rivi lies limp across the back of the soaring beast, her freckled face pale and still. She's being carried by the Knight Delta, who looks down at the landscape far below with a detached gaze. Delta, a scarred and stern man, shows no emotion as he carries out his mission for the kingdom. Rivi slowly regains consciousness, her head swimming as she wonders where she has been taken. Her eyes widen in shock as she looks past the knight's shoulder and sees nothing but the open sky. The wyvern glides through the upper atmosphere, moving with a speed that makes any pursuit impossible. Rivi cries out in terror, realizing she is trapped on the back of a legendary creature high above the ground. She recognizes the knight's armor and demands to know how the spear of the kingdom could stoop so low. Delta remains cold, stating that they will go to any lengths required to return her to her proper place. He warns her to behave, nodding that falling from this height would be a very messy end for her. Far below them, the world looks like a tiny map, emphasizing just how helpless Rivi is in this moment. Rivi desperately claims that the people in her village will notice she's gone and come to save her. The knight scoffs, telling her that nobody from that village will ever be coming for her. A wave of dread washes over Rivi as she asks what he could possibly mean by those words. Delta reveals that they burned the village to the ground and left no survivors to ensure their tracks were covered. Rivi cries out that Eldmia is coming to save her. Delta just scoffs, asking what on earth she's talking about. He boasts that he still has an entire group of elite henchmen waiting in the forest. He's convinced that Eldmia is just a child who can't possibly win against all of them. Shaken by the knight's words, Rivi immediately envisions a grim scenario. The image of Eldmia flashes through her mind, meeting a grim fate. High above the clouds, Rivi trembles as she's held captive on the flying beast. Delta tells her she'll forget her commoner friends soon, as she'll never see them again. Suddenly, a massive explosion of light shatters the night sky. Delta is blinded by the glare, his eyes wide with confusion. Out of nowhere, Eldmia drops from the heavens like a falling star. He brandishes his sword, eyes glowing with an intense blue light. He drives his blade deep into the wyvern's skull, unleashing a spray of blood. Delta is stunned the kid managed to get so high above them. He stares in horror as his mount is crippled by a single, devastating strike. Eldmia leaps away from the dying creature as it starts to plummet. Delta quickly draws his own blade, clashing with the boy midair. The impact sends out a massive shockwave that rattles the night. They trade blows while falling through the pitch-black sky. Delta can't believe how reckless the boy is being. He wonders if the kid is trying to kill them all instead of saving the girl. He's shocked Eldmia actually jumped from such a high altitude. The knight begins to suspect that Eldmia isn't working alone. He realizes someone from his own side must have betrayed them. Delta's face contorts with rage as he prepares to end the fight. He unleashes a torrential wave of purple aura, slashing through the air. Eldmia is caught in the energy storm, struggling to hold on. Delta boasts that his years of combat experience outclass the boy's raw power. Determined, Eldmia surges forward, his own magic flaring up. The knight swings his glowing purple sword for a final, lethal blow. But Eldmia releases a blinding flash of light, activating the sunrise. Delta is completely blinded by the sudden radiance. He realizes too late the boy's head-on charge was just a distraction. In the confusion, Eldmia slices through the knight's defense. Rivi gasps as she's finally snatched out of harm's way. Eldmia holds her close as they tumble together through the clouds. They both fell straight down onto the wyvern, just as the pilot caught them in time. The goggle thug celebrates, relieved that the risky plan actually worked. Rivi clings to her savior, whispering a shaky thank you. But then she notices a large patch of blood spreading across his side. Eldmia realizes Delta managed to score a hit in that split second. His strength finally gives out, and he slumps into Rivi's arms. The memory of Rivi calling his name echoes as the sun rises over the horizon. Eldmia slowly wakes up in his own bed confused about where he is. He stares at the ceiling, his mind still a bit hazy after the fight. He looks down and sees Acelia fast asleep by his side, her hand still resting on his. Sensing movement, his sister starts to blink her eyes open. The second she sees him awake, she nearly jumps out of her skin with relief. She immediately goes into big sister mode, yelling at him for being so reckless. But the anger doesn't last long before she pulls him into a tearful hug. Eldmia gives her a weak smile and apologizes for making her worry so much. Acelia tells him he wasn't the only one, mentioning that Rivi has been visiting every day. Right then, Rivi walks into the room, now dressed in expensive-looking noble gear. Eldmia is relieved to see her safe, but she looks like she's about to burst into tears. Instead of a hug, she starts jokingly pummeling him for staying unconscious for 3 days. He laughs it off, telling her that she should probably thank him first. He notices her new outfit and asks if she's finally met up with her people. Rivi gives a playful smirk, looking every bit the noble she was born to be. She then gets serious, telling him there's something they need to talk about. She reaches out and firmly grasps his hand. With a hopeful expression, she asks if he'll come with her to the royal capital. Eldmia isn't interested. Rivi tries to get him to at least sleep on the idea, but his mind is made up. He appreciates the offer, but he's got a personal goal that requires him to get a lot stronger. Rivi points out that the knights in the capital could actually teach him how to fight. Eldmia just looks away, insisting Acelia is the only master he needs. To him, an elven mage like Acelia is as strong as it gets. Why look anywhere else? Rivi drops a heavy question. What if there's someone out there even stronger than his sister? Before Eldmia can even process that, a massive pair of armored boots thuds onto the floor behind him. The boy scoffs, wondering why a total big shot would even bother wasting time on him. A voice from right behind him wonders the same thing. Eldmia freezes. His eyes go wide. He didn't hear a single footstep. He spins around to find a towering knight in polished white armor standing in the doorway. He didn't sense this guy's presence at all. Eldmia snaps, asking who the hell he is. Rivi quickly steps in to calm him down. She recognizes him immediately. It's Sir Ekaf. The knight is just glad to see Lady Laguni's safe. Eldmia's brain short-circuits at the name. He identifies her as the Shield of the Kingdom, Margrave Laguni's Rienda Rivian. The name Rivian hits Eldmia like a truck. A Margrave, that's serious business. He pictures the map of the kingdom. The Rivian territory is massive. Their tiny village of Ogwen is just a speck compared to it. He looks at Rivi. She isn't just some noble girl. She's from one of the most powerful families in the land. She's an even bigger deal than all the rumors he's heard. Eldmia is completely stunned. Sir Ekaf shifts his focus to the boy. His purple eyes are sharp and calculating. He asks if he's speaking to Eldmia. The boy doesn't back down from the intense gaze. The knight is surprised a kid this young managed to take out Dandel. He's curious if the rumors about Eldmia using aura are true. Eldmia glares back. He's not in the mood for an interrogation. He tells Sir Ekaf his business is none of his. Rivi tries to intervene, but the tension is rising. Eldmia makes it clear he doesn't like him. He asks where this supposed guardian was when Rivi was actually in danger. Rivi shouts that it was all her fault, but Eldmia is too focused on the knight. Sir Ekaf remains calm. He tells the boy this is a political matter far beyond the business of an outsider. Eldmia bristles at being called an outsider. He's ready to snap. Then Sir Ekaf makes an offer. Everything would change if the boy became his disciple. Rivi explains that this was why she brought him here. Sir Ekaf actually wants to welcome him into the family. This man is the third sword of the king, Sir Ekaf Tushin Augatorf. He's one of the strongest fighters in the entire capital. Sir Ekaf admits he's already dug into the boy's past. He knows about his recent fights with the local thugs. Eldmia's expression darkens. The knight knows more than he should. He brings up 3 years ago, when Eldmia's parents were killed by the Demon Lord's army. He knows the boy is only seeking strength for revenge. The mention of his parents strikes a nerve. Eldmia grinds his teeth as the memory floods back. He lunges forward, his foot kicking off the floor with explosive force. He screams, demanding to know what a guy like him could possibly know. He throws a punch straight at the knight's face. Sir Ekaf doesn't even flinch. He catches the punch in his armored palm with zero effort. He warns the boy never to let emotions dictate his actions. Rage just makes his moves predictable and sloppy. Eldmia tries to pull his hand back, but the knight's grip is like a vice. He's completely pinned. He doesn't give up, spinning around to launch a desperate follow-up kick. Sir Ekaf's eyes narrow. He notices something unusual about the boy's energy. A brilliant blue aura flares up as the kick connects with the knight's arm. It's not just aura, it's raw magic power. Eldmia is stunned. He actually managed to land a hit. His blue eyes widened, something didn't feel right. Sir Ekaf completely blocked his kick with his hand. The boy collapses, the effort having taken everything out of him. The knight admits he'd love to spar more, but there's no time. Sir Ekaf tells him he's in no condition to keep going. Eldmia groans in frustration. The boy snaps back, saying if the knight was really that strong, he should have saved Rivi sooner. Titles don't mean anything if you aren't there when it counts. Sir Ekaf looks down, agreeing with the boy. No matter the title, there are always things they fail to protect. He thinks of all the people out there crying for help that they'll never know about. It's impossible to save everyone. He places a heavy hand on Eldmia's shoulder. There's only one real solution. They have to annihilate the Demon Lord's army. That's the only way to truly save everyone. To do that, the kingdom needs every strong fighter it can get, especially talented ones like Eldmia. Sir Ekaf promises to make him stronger than anyone else. He asks Eldmia to become a sword of the kingdom and fight alongside him. Eldmia looks away, lost in thought. The weight of the choice is heavy. He walks through the familiar fields of his home one last time. Asilia is waiting for him under the great tree. He stops, looking up at her. She knows what he's decided. He calls out to her. She turns around, a sad but knowing smile on her face. Asilia knew this day would come eventually, but she didn't expect it so soon. She asks if he's really leaving. Leaves swirl around them in the breeze. The forest seems to be mourning his departure. Eldmia looks at her, explaining he has to do whatever it takes to get stronger. She understands, doesn't she? He thanks her from the bottom of his heart. The last 3 years have meant everything to him. She looks at him tenderly. She's raised him like her own. She calls him by his nickname, Eldy. Her heart is breaking, but she's proud. She opens her arms wide, asking for one last hug before he goes. She has a warm, bright smile despite the sadness. Eldmia can't find the words. He just nods. He runs into her arms, hugging her tight under the golden light of the tree. It's a final, silent promise. A carriage rolls down the dusty road, leaving the sanctuary of Ogwen far behind. The journey has begun. Inside, Eldmia wears a new gold tassel earring. It's a gift from Asilia. Rivi notices it immediately. She's never seen him wear jewelry before. He tells her Asilia gave it to him. It's part of a traditional elven ritual to make sure a promise is kept. Rivi starts to blush. She wonders what kind of promise he could have possibly made to an elf. Eldmia just chuckles and says it's a secret. Now she's even more curious. Back at the tree, Asilia watches the carriage fade into the distance. She's left behind, but her heart goes with him. They arrive at the royal capital. The Agatorf estate is a massive, opulent mansion that dwarfs anything Eldmia has ever seen. In the training grounds, someone is venting their frustration. Training dummies lie shattered on the floor. A girl with long, blonde hair crumples a piece of paper in her gloved hand. She's livid that her father would bring home some random brat as a disciple. She mutters Eldmia's name with pure spite. She isn't about to let some country kid take her place. This is Cheryl Agatorf. She grips her sword, determined to show him just how terrifying her family can be. The carriage continues through the bustling streets. The political climate in the capital is more dangerous than any monster. Rivi explains the situation to Eldmia. The country is split right down the middle between the royalists and the noble factions. She's the only one left in her family. Even though she's the rightful heir, she's still a minor with no actual power. That's why the nobles tried to kidnap her. She's nothing but a pawn to them, a way to manipulate the Rivian house and everyone connected to it. The nobles probably figured she'd be a useful tool in their war against the crown. Rivi's existence is a political landmine. Inside the carriage, Eldmia asks Rivi why she didn't just seek help from the royalist faction if her family belongs to it. Rivi looks down, her expression serious as she explains her desire to be the driving force behind her family's restoration. She notes that people are often moved by dramatic narratives, implying a calculated move for public sympathy. She envisions herself as a pitiful survivor, a role she refuses to accept because it wouldn't garner the strong support needed for her house. Eldmia listens intently as she describes her plan, to survive independently and return when she's of age as the rightful heir. She imagines a grand return, appearing before the kingdom as the brave daughter of a hero, ready to reclaim her legacy. With a bright smile, she tells him that such a story would solidify the royalist's position and win over the common people. Eldmia finds the plan incredibly reckless, wondering if it wouldn't have been safer for the royalists to simply hide her until she matured. Sir Ekaf, listening in, agrees with the logic but notes that Rivi adamantly refused to reveal her location to anyone. Rivi turns to Eldmia with a playful look, reminding him that despite her planning, it was he who truly saved her in the end. Eldmia offers a gentle smile, content as long as she is safe and sound. The carriage makes its way across the vast landscape toward the towering walls of the royal capital. Sir Ekaf, handling the reins, informs them that they are nearing their destination. The wheels of the carriage rumble over the road, carrying them into a new chapter of their lives. They arrive at the massive, ornate estate belonging to the Agator family. Eldmia is wide-eyed at the luxury, while Rivi looks out the window, reminiscing about her last visit. Rivi asks Sir Ekaf how his daughter, Cheryl, has been doing lately. Sir Ekaf pauses as he steps out, admitting that Cheryl has been going through a bit of a rebellious phase. As someone reaches for the carriage door, he warns that she has become quite strong-willed. Suddenly, the door is thrown open by a young woman with long blonde hair and an intense gaze, Cheryl Agatorf. She glares into the carriage with piercing purple eyes, her expression anything but welcoming. Eldmia and Rivi are taken aback by the sudden, fierce presence of the knight's daughter. Confused by the hostility, Eldmia asks the girl who she is. Cheryl's face contorts with anger as she confirms his identity, shouting his name with disdain. She quickly shifts to a polite greeting for Rivi, Lady Lagunis, before turning her fury back on Eldmia. Pointing a finger at him, she challenges Eldmia to a duel on the spot to pay back his alleged insult to her father. Eldmia can only sigh at the absurdity, feeling more tired than annoyed. Sir Ekaf tries to play it off, claiming he arranged this friendly match to help the two of them bond. Eldmia isn't buying the excuse, especially when he sees the veteran knight looking noticeably nervous. Eldmia cracks his knuckles and smirks, deciding that a bit of exercise might be good after the long journey. "If you insist, I accept your challenge," he declares, his competitive spirit flaring up. The two take their positions in the estate's training courtyard, practice swords in hand as they face off. Rivi watches with concern, asking Sir Ekaf if it's really okay to let them fight right after meeting. Sir Ekaf breaks out in a cold sweat, realizing that once Cheryl is set on something, there is no stopping her. Cheryl enters a focused stance, her aura intensifying as she prepares to strike. She lunges forward, her feet kicking up dust as she closes the distance in an instant. With a fierce cry, she swings her blade at the newcomer. Eldmia meets the attack head-on, their wooden swords clashing with a heavy thud. Cheryl grits her teeth, telling him he has some nerve showing his face and ordering him to go back to his village. Eldmia retorts sharply, pointing out that it was her own father who invited him to become a disciple. The air rings with the sound of their constant strikes as they test each other's strength. They move with blinding speed, a flurry of wood and motion as the duel escalates into a genuine battle of skill. Eldmia deftly parries Cheryl's heavy blow, his focus entirely on his opponent's movements. The two trade strikes in a blur of motion, their practice swords clashing repeatedly in the courtyard. Cheryl's eyes narrow with intense focus, determined to find a weakness in the boy's defense. She unleashes a powerful overhead swing, forcing Eldmia to react quickly. Cheryl anticipates his reaction, her mind already several steps ahead as she tracks his movement. As Eldmia drops low to dodge the strike, Cheryl prepares her follow-up, expecting him to be vulnerable. She spins her blade with fluid precision, aiming to catch him off guard before he can recover. With a confident smirk, she declares that the duel is over, certain that her final strike will land. A foot plants firmly on the ground, signaling a sudden, decisive shift in momentum. Before Cheryl can react, Eldmia closes the gap with surprising speed, bypassing her guard entirely. The training yard falls silent as Eldmia brings his sword to a halt, the wooden tip resting inches from Cheryl's throat. Cheryl stands frozen, her own weapon rendered useless by Eldmia's lightning-fast countermaneuver. A look of pure shock washes over her face as she realizes she has been completely outplayed. Her heart races as she tries to process the speed and skill he just demonstrated, wondering how he could have moved so fast. Her eyes tremble, the reality of her defeat sinking in as she stares at the point of the sword. Eldmia casually lowers his weapon and lets out a soft, ouch, the physical strain of the battle finally catching up to him. Looking entirely unfazed, he asks her if she is finally satisfied with the result of their duel. Cheryl explodes with indignation, accusing him of holding back and demanding that he finish the fight properly, while Eldmia dryly notes that doing so might actually kill him. Eldmia calmly retorts that he never meant to insult her father, explaining that he simply has his own pride to maintain. Cheryl remains silent for a moment, her initial anger giving way to a grudging curiosity about the newcomer. With a friendly grin, Eldmia extends his hand, making it clear that he isn't going anywhere until he reaches his goal. Cheryl stares at the offered hand, her pride still stinging from the loss. After a tense hesitation, she reaches out, though her expression remains defiant. Instead of a truce, she snaps at him, betting he won't last 3 days before running back to his village, sparking another round of bickering. Sir Ekaf and Rivi watch the kids from the sidelines. Ekaf notes that both Eldmia and his daughter have one big thing in common: they absolutely hate losing. Eldmia isn't just talk, though. He's fired up, shouting that he's going to get way stronger than anyone expects. The grind starts immediately. Sweat hits the floorboards as he pushes his body to the limit. Every morning begins the same way, endless push-ups in his room before the sun is even fully up. Outside, the training is even more brutal. Ekaf stands over him like a hawk, making sure his form is perfect. He spends hours hacking away at training dummies, focusing on speed and precision until his arms feel like lead. Strength training is next level. He's out in the woods dragging massive boulders uphill while the cicadas buzz in the heat. By the time he hits the bed, he's completely spent. It's a cycle of pain, but he isn't stopping. The seasons start to shift. Outside the window, the lush green leaves begin to turn into the fiery oranges of autumn. The intensity only ramps up as the air gets cooler. He's moving faster now, his strikes carrying more weight. He starts sparring with Cheryl, and it's a total deadlock. Ekaf watches from the back, seeing his daughter and the country brat push each other to the brink. Cheryl isn't making it easy. She lunges forward, catching Eldmia off guard with a speed he didn't see coming. Then comes the bite of winter. Snow piles up on the branches, but the training doesn't slow down for a second. He's out there barefoot in the freezing cold, blue aura flaring around his feet, as he connects with the raw magic inside him. Shirtless in a blizzard, he's practically steaming. You can see the change. He's not a scrawny kid anymore. He's building real power. He takes a deep breath, the cold air filling his lungs as he focuses his mind. Reaching his goal is the only thing that matters. Finally, the frost begins to melt. The sky clears up, welcoming the return of the sun. Tiny pink buds start to bloom on the branches. Spring is here, and a full year of training is officially in the books. Back in the room, a hand hits the floor, but it's much larger and steadier than before. Eldmia is a beast now. He's knocking out one-handed push-ups like they're nothing, his physique completely transformed into a wall of muscle. Cheryl kicks the door open without a second thought, telling him to quit stalling and hurry up. She's grown up quite a bit herself. Eldmia just groans, telling her to learn how to knock. She doesn't care. She's worried all the good adventure quests will be gone if they're late. He wipes the sweat away, looking like a completely different person. The scrawny kid is gone, the Avenger is ready. They leave their cabin behind, heading out into the world as a professional duo. Their name is already starting to travel. Meanwhile, in a dark hideout, a bandit grins as he dumps a bag of stolen gold onto a table. The bandit boss leans back, satisfied. He's got his crew gathered, celebrating what they're calling a massive jackpot. The boss is practically gloating, laughing about how moving their operations to the royal capital was the best move they ever made. He's already planning the next few raids, figuring they can milk the rich folks for a few more runs before the guild even notices they're there. He finds it hilarious. One little threat and these people just beg for their lives, handing over everything they've got. But a cold voice cuts through the laughter. A hooded figure is watching from the doorway, whispering a single word, "Scum." Cheryl steps into the light, her eyes narrow and full of contempt. She's heard enough of their bragging. Before the boss can even stand up, her sword is at his throat. He freezes, realizing he's been completely blindsided. He starts sweating, stammering out a question about who the hell she is and how she got inside. The rest of the crew jumps up, shouting for their boss. They're insulted that a couple of adventurers would just barge in like they own the place. Cheryl snaps at them to shut up. She's done talking. She calls out to Eldmia, telling him it's time to finish this. The bandits start scrambling, shouting to guard the windows and doors. They realize she didn't come alone. Cheryl just smirks. She tells Eldmia to hurry it up. She's getting bored already. One bandit looks up and his heart stops. High up in the rafters, a hooded Eldmia is perched like a predator, blue aura glowing from his eyes. Panic sets in as the bandit realizes exactly who they're dealing with. It's too late. Eldmia drops from the ceiling like a meteor, his blade already drawn and glowing with lethal energy. The bandits try to fight back, pointing and screaming, but they're way out of their league. It's a total slaughter. Eldmia moves like a blur, cutting through them with ruthless efficiency. The mad dog has officially arrived. Eldmia's eyes are practically glowing blue under that hood. He's completely locked in. Some bandit thinks he can get the jump on him, screaming like a total lunatic. Bad idea. Eldmia plants his foot, getting ready to launch into his next move. Blue aura flares as he delivers a massive kick right to the guy's jaw. That dude is definitely not getting back up. He doesn't even pause to admire his work. He's already focusing on the next target. Blood sprays as Eldmia cuts through another bandit like he's made of paper. The kid is absolutely lethal. It's a total mess inside the cabin. Most of the crew is already down, and the survivors are losing their minds. Cheryl keeps her sword on the bandit boss while Eldmia stands amidst the carnage, looking completely unfazed by the blood on the floor. The boss is a blubbering mess now, dropping to his knees and begging for his life. He's offering up every last coin they've stolen, thinking money can buy him a way out of this situation. Eldmia pulls his hood back, telling him he's not even worth the effort to kill. That's cold. He tells the guy they're only keeping him alive as proof for the guild that the job is done. The boss thinks he's getting off easy. But Eldmia has other plans. He clenches his fist, promising to beat a lesson into the guy's body that he'll never forget. He lunges forward with a terrifying look in his eyes. He wants to make sure this guy remembers the name Eldmia Ega for the rest of his miserable life. Outside the hideout, the silence of the forest is shattered by the bandits' agonized screams. It's a brutal ending for that crew. Scene change to the bustling adventurers' guild in the royal capital. Things are looking way more upscale here. The receptionist is all smiles as she confirms the suppression quest was a total success. Job well done. She hands Eldmia a heavy sack of reward money. He takes it with a satisfied grin, finally seeing the payoff for all that training. Eldmia's ready to call it a day, but he sees Cheryl is already scanning the next set of job postings. The grind never stops. He reminds her she's supposed to be at the academy tomorrow, but she says vacation officially starts now. So more quests it is. He takes a look at the quest she found. It's another bandit job, but the scale is on a completely different level. Cheryl explains it's a massive operation near a vineyard to the west, hearing a small army of 60 adventurers for this one. Eldmia asks if her dad, Lord Ekaf, is gonna be cool with this. She just smirks and says she's got a great idea to handle him. We see a glimpse of her plan. She basically tells Ekaf that if he says no, she'll just sneak out and follow him to the battlefield anyway. Works every time. As they walk away, Eldmia feels eyes on him and glances up at the guild's high windows. Someone is watching. Up in his office, the guildmaster is indeed watching the rookie with a very interested expression. He's taking notes. He tells his companion that Eldmia appeared out of nowhere a year ago and has been rising through the ranks like a comet. He notes that no matter who the kid faces, he crushes them without even a hint of mercy. Total domination. Because of that cold efficiency, people in the capital have started calling him the Mad Dog, a name that definitely fits. The mysterious person in the cloak listens quietly, processing just how dangerous this kid might actually be. Eldmia just chuckles at the new nickname. He doesn't care what they call him as long as he's getting results. 2 days later, they're at a wine vineyard on the outskirts of the city, where a huge crowd of adventurers has gathered. Eldmia looks around at the sea of hired swords, wondering which one of these guys is actually the one paying the bills. Cheryl points out the grumpy noble sitting nearby. That's Baron Papera, a guy who reportedly bought his title with cash. Eldmia isn't impressed. Buying a title is usually a huge red flag for someone with no real backbone or skills. A loud-mouthed representative for the Baron steps up, shouting for everyone to listen up because it's time to start. He points to the dense forest across a wide, open field, claiming that's where the 20 bandits are hiding out. The master plan, he explains, is to just form a single line and charge straight across the field all at once. Eldmia and Cheryl are stunned. Eldmia stares at the guy like he's got a second head. He's wondering if this dude is actually for real. He looks out at the open field. There's zero cover. Charging across that space is basically a death sentence for anyone in line. The other adventurers are already starting to protest, shouting and asking if the Baron is trying to get them all killed. Cheryl whispers to Eldmia that this whole thing feels incredibly wrong. He nods. This isn't a mission, it's a setup. Baron Papera just sits there with his arms crossed, looking down his nose at everyone. That guy is definitely plotting something. The client representative starts waving his hands, trying to calm the rowdy crowd. He claims the suicide charge was just a suggestion, not an absolute order. He mentions that the Baron simply wants to suppress the bandits as quickly as possible. Yeah, right, everyone knows haste makes waste. Then he drops the hook. He says the Baron has a special proposal for everyone gathered here to make it worth their while. An extra 5 silver coins for anyone who bravely charges in first. It's a blatant bribe to get people to act as meat shields. It works. Someone's grip tightens on their sword. Greed is a powerful motivator, even when the risk is a cold grave. A bunch of the less experienced adventurers start cheering, waving their blades in the air. They're ready to jump into the fire for a handful of silver. The client representative gets this absolutely disgusting, wide-eyed grin on his face. He knows he's just sold those men's lives for a discount. Eldmia's seen enough. He realizes exactly what kind of game is being played here, and he isn't interested in being a pawn. He stretches his arms behind his head, casually telling the guy that since it's optional, he and Cheryl are going to do their own thing. The representative's jaw practically hits the floor. Eldmia gives him a sharp, knowing look, asking if there's actually an issue with them acting independently. He's calling the guy's bluff. The guy starts sweating buckets, stuttering out a nervous laugh. He clearly didn't expect anyone to have the guts to refuse such generous pay. He looks like he's about to have a total meltdown. He keeps glancing back toward the Baron, desperate for some kind of sign. The Baron doesn't move a muscle, just sitting there on his log while his personal guards stand at the ready. He's the one pulling all the strings. Finally, the Baron gives a slight, cold glare, silently signaling to let the kids go. They're not worth the public scene. The client representative instantly flips back to his fake friendly persona, telling them it's totally fine for them to head out on their own. Eldmia and Cheryl don't waste any time, turning their backs on the camp and heading toward the dense tree line. Once they're away from the group, Cheryl confirms what they both already know. That charge was a blatant trap. Eldmia just nods. Eldmia's eyes narrow with suspicion. He knows the Baron is up to something, but he can't figure out why he'd sacrifice so many people for a few bandits. Cheryl looks ahead into the brush, her voice dropping to a grim, serious tone as she considers the consequences of the Baron's plan. She says it out loud. If they don't do something to intervene, every single one of those adventurers is going to die out there today.